What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Eric, and today I'm going to review Wrath of Man. I just got back from the movie theater, checking this one out, and I went in with very medium expectations. We're talking about Jason Statham. He has some good films. He has some okay ones. He has some terrible ones. And the same goes for Guy Ritchie. I mean, he got some really good films. He's got some not so great films. So, we're talking about an action movie in 2021. What are you really going to expect out of this, right? Just hoping to get something that's going to be okay, that keeps me halfway entertained, and that I don't fall asleep in. Didn't need to be blown away. Didn't expect to be at the edge of my seat. Guess what happened? I was blown away and at the edge of my seat. This film really surprised me. I thought it was damn good. I'm going to keep this pretty much spoiler free. No main big spoilers in this one, just so you know. But I mean, it's a Jason Statham action movie. So yes, I mean, I wouldn't call it predictable, but you kind of know what's going to go on. This is kind of a revenge movie. It's also kind of a heist movie, and it's just a lot of fun. And Jason Statham is perfect for the role of H. This is a guy who gets a job with his armored truck company. And it's really interesting at the beginning because he's having to pass all these tests before he can start working there, including a driving test, a shooting test, and he reminds me of myself. Like he's adequate, like he's passing. He's just not great, not impressive, but good enough. It's like me. But this happens at the beginning, and there's going to be a lot of flashbacks. The sequence of this movie, like some of Guy Ritchie's movies, is not perfectly linear, and I think it really adds a lot to this movie because during the scene, while we're watching him, not too great, barely pass his shooting test, barely pass his driving test, he kind of bumps into some stuff. Oops, sorry about that. You're looking at it like, Jason Statham, something's wrong. Okay, this dude is badass. This dude is not trying his best. I don't think something's going on, and if he is trying his best, that's really interesting too. So either way, something is interesting here. And we learn as the film goes on what's driving him, what's going on in his mind, why he wants to work here, and what exactly his goals are. And as we learn that, it's really interesting as well. And we see kind of the flashbacks and flash forwards and all of that goes on, while he's investigating this terrible thing that happened, and he's basically out for revenge. And it's really interesting. The music is on point here, very low sounding music, kind of a bassy sound, but it's actually really good for this particular movie. This movie doesn't have a lot of comedy, pretty much none, which is fine. Doesn't need any comedy. In fact, it's for the better for this movie that they didn't try to add in little jokes here and there that would have just made it worse. Didn't need it. This film is not a comedy at all. This is a badass action heist movie, and it is really good. We see him with his co-workers. He's a little bit suspicious to some of them, trying to figure out what's going on. This company we know is involved in this terrible thing some way, somehow. And so just his relationships there, a lot of potential possibilities of who is involved in this and who's not. And it makes it so we don't really know. We might know the overarching way this movie's going to end, if you've seen an action movie before, but we don't know who's who here. Who's the bad guy here? Who's the good guy here? What is going on? Who can we trust? Who can't we trust? These are questions that while he's trying to figure it out, we're trying to figure it out too.
I can see it's going to be a long night.
It's got to be an inside job. I can do it in 2 weeks. You only wish you could do it in 20 years. I do bear a grudge.
It's a very well-edited movie, well-paced, awesome action sequences, not too over the top. This ain't your Fast and Furious. Everything is pretty much, grounded to some extent. I mean, there's going to be some cool stuff. This dude does have the skills. I mean, so we're going to see some crazy stuff, but at the same time, it's not just over the top. I mean, overall, the story, it's not the newest idea, a revenge story with a badass dude with a Jason Bourne-like, John Wick type who has been wronged, and he is out for revenge, and he's going to take mother effers out. We saw Denzel with Man of Fire. We've seen it before, but again, the way the story unfolds keeps it fresh, and there's a lot of characters, maybe too many, which I'll get to in the negatives, but at least, there being so many characters who are all very well acted, by the way, and we're looking at them like, okay, what's going on? Who's who here? who's involved, who's not, and it's really intriguing. I'm also going to praise this film for the fact that things don't always go perfectly smoothly for H, Jason Statham's character. When he's doing this investigation, he's trying to figure out what's going on. There is going to be certain times where there's certain dead ends. There's certain things that he doesn't get the answers he's looking for, but it's still, even then, that's more realistic. We know eventually he's going to make progress. Eventually he's getting closer to the piece of shit that he's after, and that's when things really get crazy. There's one moment where he's actually at a coworker's house, a female coworker named Dana. It is badass because he suspects that she knows something that she's not telling him. And the way that unfolds, I won't spoil it, but oh my God, that scene is freaking awesome. And Jason Statham, shout out for a great acting job. You can see as there's some flashbacks before this terrible thing happened. And even though he acts like himself, the rest of the movie, somehow you could see a little more pep in his step, a little more brightness in his face. You just know, okay, this is before this terrible thing happened. You can just tell. And it's really interesting how he still has that same little surly attitude. He's not doesn't talk a lot, doesn't shout. He's just a very quiet guy. But at the same time, you can tell, okay, this bad thing hasn't happened yet. And that's a shout out to his acting ability. A few nitpicks would be there's some dialogue that's unnatural, probably because it's like expository dialogue trying to tell us something that we need to know, but the way the characters reveal it is kind of unnatural. Like, why would they say that? They already knew that. Oh, they're telling us. So there's a few lines like that of dialogue that don't feel quite natural. I think could have been better written. And there's also one guy who's kind of a main villain. There's a group of villains here. And there's one particular guy who's like, why is that guy still hanging around? Because he is an absolute piece of garbage. He is not professional. He's very greedy. He just does not seem like a team player. And he's obviously, it's just too obvious that this dude is bad news. And why the hell is he still, and as they do more heists, you know that any real world situation, because the rest of them are so professional and so calculated and so methodical, there's no way that dude would still be hanging around. So that dude's definitely, there's something there. And finally, like the characters, yes, there's not going to be a ton of development. As I said earlier, there's a lot of characters to keep track of in this movie. And sometimes they look similar, like, is that guy, that guy, that guy? So I think it's a rewatchable movie that after 2 or 3 watches, that would all clear up. But on my first watch, I was kind of having a hard time keeping track of who's who because there's like a lot of characters, which also becomes a problem because you can't really develop these characters. And they don't get a ton of development. We don't really know their why they are the way they are, or what their goals are, how they became. We don't really know all that. But even with that lack of development of the characters, the actors were so good. I actually cared about a lot of these actors, even though we didn't learn a lot about them. So I got to give a shout out. Obviously, I mentioned Jason Statham, also Holt McCallany as kind of his co-worker that he works with a lot, Bullet. He is awesome in that role. Scott Eastwood plays the piece of crap that I talked about earlier, and he did a great job because I hated that guy, and I hated that guy, and that's what was meant to be. And also the main bad guy, boss man, was played by Jeffrey Donovan. He did a great job. So the acting was on point. Everyone did really well. The music was on point, and the sequences and the way this movie was edited for just maximum thrill ride, it was there. I absolutely loved this movie, Wrath of Man. I was super impressed. Not perfect at all, but I would say it is definitely freaking awesome, and I would highly recommend you to go check out Wrath of Man as soon as you freaking can. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up button as well. Let me know what you thought of Wrath of Man if you checked it out. If not, please go check it out because I really did enjoy it. It's not going to get all great reviews. It is an action movie with Jason Statham, but I was super impressed. I expected a lot worse than what I got, so I enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a great day. Look forward next week, Friday, for my Spiral from the Book of Saw review. That's what I'll be checking out next weekend, and a whole bunch of other Saw reviews up till then as we build up to it. So check out all my previous videos, as well as I did some other movie reviews as well on the channel, music reviews. We're doing it all right here. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you later.